I went to Nessie and saw that they were doing this peer group thing, and I signed up for it. And just having the support of a group of people who are making all the same decisions you are and thinking about all the same problems, that was the complete game changer for us, for my company.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, our regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Fine Homebuilding contributor and production manager at TDS Custom Construction, Ian Schwandt. Today I am joined by Heather Thompson and Mark Pollard of Juniper Design Build. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. It's great to see you guys again. I haven't seen either of you in a while. I appreciate you joining me on here.
We're excited.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. You guys have made a lot of changes since the time when I was with you in Plan Big at Nessie. You're a whole different company now, right? Can you tell everybody about the moves you've made going from the company that you ran for multiple decades, Heather, into what you are now?
Yeah, so in January, Rachel Conley Design and Thompson Johnson Woodworks merged. So we're now a design build company. We're located on Peaks Island in Portland, Maine. So Rachel Conley and I merged, and Mark Pollard came on as well. So now we're a triumvirate. Yeah, so we had been, Mark was the lead carpenter at Thompson Johnson Woodworks starting in 2007. And Rachel moved to Peaks Island and worked with us in 2006. So we've had this multiple years of, experience working together. And we decided that we enjoyed working together the most, and so we decided that we would be stronger together, and that's why we joined forces.
So Mark, you're part owner, you're a partner in this, and not just a hammer swinging guy anymore?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. I knew about the merger through most of last year, and then when Heather and Rachel and I sat down and they proposed it, too good to pass up.
Yeah. Mark's decided he's agreed to take on all the debt personally, so it really works out for us as well.
You didn't have a bunch of crypto investments or anything like that you were funding this with, did you?
FTX.
Yeah. So, Mark, are you still on the tools at all and doing work in the field, or have you moved to a managerial position in the new company?
It's both. So we had to, you always have to come up with a title. So we decided to title me production director. And so I'm sort of an intermediary between the field crew and the project management team. So my big roles are training the crew, helping the leads in a support position. We do lead training, specific task training, do all the building science stuff for the company. Not all of it, but most of it. And then, the big thing is for me to be a support role for anybody who needs it.
Right. To make sure that our build standards are sort of consistent throughout all of our projects. And I think just have leads having really consistent support with troubleshooting and planning, just having another pair of eyes on a job really has improved the way we build things.
Right. Institutional knowledge.
Institutional knowledge,
yes.
Term.
Did you find that you were having the same types of customers and jobs presented to you after you merged with Rachel? Or did bringing an architect into your business model change the types of projects that you were finding in the Peaks Island, Portland area?
Before we merged, we were doing like 85% of our work with Rachel, and we've been working in a design build capacity for, 3 or 4 years now, where Rachel will do a design, we'll do a series of estimates during design to make sure we're hitting the budget. So I don't think that we also have a very long backlog where we're taking new build projects in 2025. So I don't think that the type of customer has really changed. It's just our process has gotten a little more straightforward now. We always pitch everything as a design build project. And we're, from the start talking with customers about how that works and our process, our standards for construction.
You both have mentioned your standards for construction. I got to know you guys at Nessie, which is really focused on a higher level of green building. You talk about some of the things that the three of you offer clients in the high performance building focus.
Yeah. Right. So all of us are very like-minded in, the energy efficiency, lowering embodied carbon as much as possible. And we have certain things that are just non-negotiable, like rain screen systems. We typically do a ventilated rain screen. So it doesn't really matter to us what kind of siding you want, but you are going to get a rain screen. You're going to get a very, very, very well detailed air and water control layers. Those are the big talking points for us. And just making the building, the big thing is, like with Rachel, with a well-designed building, the hope is that the future stewards of that building never really tear into it. So having a lasting design so that, the building's going to be there in 100 years, largely untouched, maybe go through a round of window replacements and a roof replacement. But it just leaves you with a good feeling that, this isn't a throwaway structure or going to be heavily remodeled in the future.
Right. We're using dense packed cellulose. We're trying not to use foam. We're not using vinyl siding. So we're trying to make choices that are toward more sustainable materials as a standard. Like, we don't really negotiate on those things.
So from a sales perspective, Heather, is that more what you're doing as a general manager of Juniper?
We don't, I guess, we don't negotiate on how we build things. We're not going to sacrifice the quality of the build to get a project. So we spend a lot of time at the very start trying to talk realistically about pricing and schedule, so that people who are more focused on doing things for as cheaply as possible, they weed themselves out at the start. So having our standard for how we do things, it cultivates a better customer and a better relationship from the start.
And you've had a lot of projects featured over the years in not just local magazines, but also national magazines. I think Fine Homebuilding has featured some of the work that you've done. And Mark, you've written several pieces with JLC. If I'm not mistaken, you're one of a specific editor's favorite people, if I remember right. Do you find that having this out in the media and out in the zeitgeist, if you will, helps you stand apart in a pretty dense market in southern Maine?
Yeah, I haven't heard specifically from customers if they've seen all that press stuff, but it's on the website. It's lending to our credibility and our expertise. It's Fine home building articles are great because it's very accessible and for anybody who wants to read them. But the JLC ones tend to be a little more. The ones I've written are more, technical, nuts and bolts. So, I don't know if a homeowner really wants to read them or just see that they're all there and available.
Yeah.
What process do you go through on new constructions and remodels for bringing these high performance jobs to life?
So starting with the first conversation, we're talking about square foot pricing and schedule and budget, stuff like that. During design, we're looking at the wall assemblies and making sure that we're accounting for a 12-inch wall, 18-inch roof for dense packed cellulose. So we're just sort of assuming pretty good house standards in all of our builds from the start. Then it's a series of estimates and a series of disappointments because, it's always like more expensive or whatever. But so we are working with the customer to pull scope back if we need to, or add scope or whatever to get to the final estimate for construction. And we're ready to move into construction after the design is done. With renovations, we're more limited sometimes with the level of construction or the level of efficiency that we can achieve just because of the thickness of a wall or, the limited space that we're dealing with. I guess, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. Is there a type of project that you consider to really be ideal and in your wheelhouse, not just from the design perspective, but also the build?
So the type of project that's like our best project is when we've met a customer who is really excited to work in a collaborative way with us and understands that like we're all a team. We're working together from the start to solve the problem, which is how to build their house most efficiently to the highest standard that we can for the least amount of money that we can. But, everyone is working together to solve these problems together, and there is no like blaming or finger pointing. It's just like a series of problems that need to get solved together. So it's not a specific type of project. I think it's more like a customer when everyone understands that the customer's most invested, but we're all invested in making this a success. That's the type of project that is our favorite.
Do you find when you have a client like that, Mark, that they're also really involved in the build and involved in the field and wanting to understand the details that you and your crew are putting into their project?
Yeah. It's a little tricky on peaks for the projects we do out here because usually people are remote. So it's, taking pictures, sending weekly updates. But when they are on site for site meetings, they may not geek out as much as we do about air control and those kind of details, but they understand it when they see us explaining it to them. And, the systems that get put in, like ERVs, makeup air systems, they once they understand the importance of them, they really appreciate the explanation and the time that we take to tell them how important these things are. Mm-hmm. It's not, they are like an ERV is a non-negotiable item when we get to these levels of air tightness that we are getting to. And they, at first they just, you see the eyes kind of glaze over, like, why are we doing this? Why are they talking about this? And then they, they appreciate the explanation of indoor air quality and comfort and, the durability of the structure.
Right.
It's hard to get people excited about ventilation, right?
Yeah. You can scare them and, do the fear equals consumption model.
Right.
You talked about working on Peaks Island. Can you describe that small island and what it's like to work there, and what some of the challenges are, both from the build perspective and maybe working with a remote client perspective?
Sure. So Peaks is it's like a 4-mile loop around the island. We're about 20 minutes from Portland by ferry. There's a ferry basically every hour. In the summer, during the winter, there's maybe 1,000 year-round residents. In the summer, the population jumps to, I think, 5,000 summer residents, and then we get 150 million day trippers every day, so it gets really busy. So logistically in the summer, it's just kind of a pain in the ass to drive around the island or get to jobs or whatever. But so there's the threshold or the hurdle for working on the island is just having a higher level of planning built into all your tasks, because we're trying to order all the materials we need at once, so we don't have to go in town or order a box of screws to get shipped out. So we're trying to really do a much better level of planning everything we need to make sure we're not missing anything. Subcontractors are less willing to come out here, but it's really island light. We, with a ferry every hour, it's not like some of the other ferries, the other islands in Maine, like Monhegan, which is like a 2-hour ferry ride twice a week in the winter. Yeah.
That's a whole different level of
It's
planning.
a whole different,
two ferries a week.
Or a month or something. It's,
all weather dependent.
Yeah.
Very rarely the ferry will shut down occasionally with the right wind direction and with the right wind speed, but it's rare. And it's a car ferry too, so the trades can come out in their own vehicles. The lumber deliveries and vendor deliveries come out on the ferry, and we have a backup barge service that
awesome.
Our excavation contractor also runs.
How do you train up your team, your lead carpenters, to get in this mindset of, you can't just run over to Home Depot and grab something that you forgot?
That's Mark's job.
Yeah. I spent the last 2.5 years working in town, and our lumberyard, they kept reiterating to me, it's not a big deal. We run down that road every single day. So if we need a dozen 2x4s, we're driving by, it doesn't matter to us. But here, it's, if they drop it at the other side at the bay lines, then it gets freighted over. Someone has to come down, pick it up, put it in a truck, bring it to the job site. So there's a time loss there. So getting the lead, thinking through all the framing components, the hangers, the nails, the specific type of nails, and get it all out of that one truck. And we typically work on, these are smaller homes, smaller lots. So we have a lot of, space constraints. No one has garages out here, so you can't just stick everything in the garage. So you're in a crawl space. Sometimes we build little job huts that we affectionately call Job of the Huts. And that's, you make lemonade.
Do you have a big scary spreadsheet, Heather, with a bunch of costs on it of things that you incur working on the island, like going and unloading barges full of material?
I mean, we say it's 15 to 20% more expensive to build out here because of barge fees, because subs are less likely to want to come out here. So there's sometimes a premium put on coming out here. Even though it is a very straightforward commute, subcontractors will add a very hefty travel fee sometimes. So, that's the number that we have in our thought process. There is not a big spreadsheet full of how many hours did it take to unload that barge, or, but you should make it for us.
Do most of your lead carpenters and other staff live on the island, or do they come in from the mainland?
I live on the island. Rachel lives on the island. One of our carpenters lives on the island. Everyone else is coming from Portland or surrounding areas. So it works out well when we have jobs in town. And then for people coming to the island, everyone gets to take the 6:15 boat and go home on the 3:45. So they get to drive home when it's light out anyway.
In the summer, yeah. In the winter, it's dark when you come in, dark when you leave, or almost dark.
Yeah.
But
you try to give everybody that same schedule so that people can maintain a quality of life when they don't live on the island.
Yeah, and also just for planning, so that we know we can count on everyone being here at the same time.
And your office is on Peaks Island, correct?
Yes. I think you were lucky to be here at the very first stages of its renovation.
When it was still sort of a bowling alley.
Yes, sort of. So our office is in an old bowling alley on Peaks Island, and we renovated it over 3 years with a crew of 3 people. So that was an epic, long project, and I am the worst customer.
And it's done, really well. It's double stud wall construction, highly energy efficient, soon to be hopefully net zero.
Yep, we're putting solar panels on. So,
yeah.
Do you think that'll be a long-term spot for you, or do you eventually see yourselves moving into a larger space?
I mean, I think we do have a goal of eventually moving to town so that we can pursue more year-round homes. Although we do a whole lot of year-round homes on Peaks Island as well. I think we'll probably keep an office here on Peaks and then have something in town. It'd be nice to have a wood shop. It'd be nice to have some storage space besides like under my house or in the crawl space of the bowling alley.
So I met both of you through the Nessie Bottom Lines peer group programs. How have being involved in peer groups helped both of you develop into the leaders of the company that you are now?
So I bought Thompson Johnson from my ex-husband in 2012, and I was running it by myself. I was extremely, running a company. I had run it with him before, but, taking on all that extra new responsibility was extremely stressful. And I went to Nessie and saw that they were doing this peer group thing, and I signed up for it. And it just having the support of a group of people who are making all the same decisions you are, and thinking about all the same problems was the thing that, if I had not joined the peer group, we would have gone out of business 2 years later, because we weren't charging enough. Just having people support you with difficult decisions that you have to make, telling you, you can do this, it'll be fine. That was the complete game changer for us, for my company.
And Mark, You got a chance to be involved in it too. It's not common necessarily for leads or production staff to get brought into those peer groups, but Heather, for some reason in her brave visionariness, realized that bringing you was a good idea.
Yeah, that was the first. I had no idea what these were and what they entailed, and what I was getting myself into. But it was, as Heather said, it was great to see the same group of people, whether they're general contractors or architectural firms or mechanical firms, going through the same decision-making processes and the same growing pains, if that was their goal. and it's comforting, to know you're not out there alone. Being on the Beeble thread for like the whole organization, and then just our subgroup, which is now Team Flow. It's nice to see like all this collaborativeness. Everyone is, they're doing it in a way it's just so supportive. And, for me to see from the business side, even, those early days, I had no ambitions to own a business. Mostly because seeing what Heather was going through, and to see how they hold each other accountable for doing their homework, getting all your profit loss stuff, your balance sheets, getting those all in line, and having them presented every 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and then doing those deep dives where they come and visit your company to really examine to help you do the things that you want to do, and find those things that you didn't even know existed. It's great. It's something that, I know you have said you wish it existed in the Midwest, and hopefully it becomes a model that other areas of the country can take on and do, because it's hugely important.
Mm-hmm. And the focus on people, planet, and profit, the triple bottom line, is what makes it stand out as a peer group. For me, it's the beneficial thing for me mostly is like having the time to every 6 months to go and like just think about business and nothing else, and hear what, how are people billing, or like how are people tracking their profit, like just like sitting in a group of people and talking about that nerdy business stuff that with no other distractions, like, oh, an estimate's due, or, oh, whatever happened.
Oh, the fairies
window
coming.
orders all backwards. Yeah, exactly. And even if, it's just the time to really, really sit down and think about how you're running your business and what your big goals are.
One of the things that jumped out to me about the bottom lines group was that triple bottom line. And you talk about how those guiding principles, if you want to call them that, have helped you build a successful business?
I mean, our goals, our company goals, are to treat people well, to have a really nice working environment, to provide jobs that, hopefully benefits and salaries and whatever that let people work here and have a decent living and quality of life. And then our goal is to try to make things better with every project that we're doing, or at least hit a standard that's not going to be like the worst thing you could possibly do. So the triple bottom line of Beeble, that totally aligns with all of our goals as a company. We spend a lot more time talking about the business part of it because no one in the Beeble group, well, probably 2 people, most people are just kind of figuring this out from scratch. There aren't very many business majors. We're all reinventing the wheel, so we spend a lot of time talking about how to run a business. But just having the focus of what are the benefits you're providing? How are you dealing with holidays and vacation? Thinking about the hitting what's the MIT living wage? Trying to have that be a standard at least for how we're paying people. We're thinking about all of that stuff a lot more than just making a profit, maximizing profit over everything else.
And then using that profit wisely to do something good for your people and for the environment. From what I remember of being in the groups, I always felt like there was groups of people who were there for each one of the separate P's. Some people who were really focused on saving the planet, and some people who were really focused on doing things to make more profit, and some people who were there looking for ideas to make the lives of their employees and even clients better.
Mm-hmm. And I think, the big takeaway for me is you can't really do any of the other stuff unless you're making a profit, because you have to stay in business. So figuring out the business practices that allow you to pay people well, have vacations and all that stuff, that's all related to the profit. So I guess I'm in that P group. I'm in the
Do you find that it's hard to sometimes balance those three triple bottom line?
I think we could be doing things like we have never built a straw bale house or a hay bale house. Yeah. So we could be upping our standards for material choices, and a lot of that's a function of cost for customers and also access to some materials. Right. I think that's something I think that's the hardest part of that, the planet part.
Are there any projects that you guys have done on peaks that you're particularly proud of, especially from that planet high performance perspective?
That one right there in the photograph behind us is that's one, but there's not, I wouldn't say there's one in particular. It's that evolution of you don't know what you don't know. So if early on we wrapped a few houses in multiple layers of rigid insulation foam, and it doesn't make me cringe now because it's still a building that's going to be there for a very long time. It's going to perform exactly the way it was intended to. And would we do that same thing now? Probably not. So it's that planet portion that for me in particular is, developing the red list and trying to, get those materials and get the clients that are, maybe they just don't know. So when you propose a straw bale house and you kind of see them, they perk up a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's different. And let's explore it. And maybe we'll do one in the next few years. And we really hope that we will. Mm-hmm. We're really excited for the Timber HP plant up in Madison. That's huge. That's a product that we will try to put in the non-negotiable category of our builds. Mm-hmm.
And that's a wood fiber exterior insulation that would replace your double layer of rigid foam.
Right.
And they're developing a bat and a blow-in product as well. That'll actually be released before the rigid product.
And then that would have a lower footprint because it's a locally made product as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All sawmill waste that would normally probably be pelletized and floated over to Europe to be put in a boiler plant to make electricity. So it's great that Maine has a very healthy forestry industry, and this plant in particular there's many other shuttered plants around the state, so we could definitely make a lot of this type of stuff here, and we should be making it here.
Heather, Mark mentioned knowing what you don't know and going through kind of an evolution. Has there been any big markers in your career of owning a building company where you've kind of learned something that you didn't know and it gave you an aha moment or changed your process at all?
I mean, everything.
Every day.
Yeah. I mean, when I bought the company, I was the administrator. Previously, I did a lot of talking about like how things are built and whatever. But when I worked as a carpenter for like 3 months when I was 18, so I was working as an apprentice. Like that's sort of the extent of my build experience, like hands-on build experience. So when I took over the company, I called every single framing member a 2x4. So it was that was an aha, well, not an aha moment, but it was just
it's still
hilarious.
a running joke, which is always funny.
I think
it's just those small things as you learn. 10 years ago we first started hearing, maybe a little bit longer, about global warming potential of materials, right? So that we all knew pretty quickly which ones were the ones to avoid or try to use in a very limited capacity. We still use spray foam. It's just, you have to, and on remodeling projects, on especially really old buildings,
and basements.
Basements, because we're not sending a carpenter into a rim joist area with tape and caulk. It's just, that's ridiculous. But we also will not fill rafter and stud bays with foam, because not only is it terrible for as far as an insulation product you can choose, but I don't want to tear one of these apart in 5 to 10 years, 20 years, and have to get all that stupid foam out of there. That's my number one thing about it, is that it supersedes the environmental impact. Is I do not want to remove it.
Yeah.
So far, none of the major tool manufacturers have come out with a sweet little cordless tool that does this, because it's impossible.
So
you're really thinking of the next person who has to work on the project, which goes back to your wanting to build projects that are going to last a long time and be there for multiple generations of use.
Yeah, right. The aha moment when I went to BE 17, I think, and the presentation about the embodied carbon in buildings and how you could build a passive house level house with spray foam, or you could build a code build house with dense packed cellulose, and you would never make back the carbon you emitted with the passive house during the build. Operationally over the life, you could never make that back. Like the code build house with dense packed cellulose far exceeded the passive house in terms of the amount of carbon that was emitted. I said that backwards. What I'm saying is foam's really bad. That was a crazy aha moment for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes you look at all of the work that you do differently and shows you some of the good that you can do, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And those are all part of your non-negotiables now?
Right. Yeah, like Mark was saying, we're using spray foam where we have to, in a basement where it's the potential for water or whatever. We're not using it in the walls. We're not using it in the attic. We're not using vinyl siding. We're trying to minimize concrete. We've done a few floating wood slabs now. Instead of pouring cement slabs, we do a lot of frost protected shallow foundations so that, partly on Peaks Island, it's just a logistics thing. Bringing out concrete trucks is a bigger pain in the ass than it is in town. But we're trying to minimize the use of concrete as well as other plastic stuff.
Right. Yeah, we have a great structural engineer that's on board with, he could easily spec steel I-beams, but we can do it with wood.
15 LVLs.
Yeah, just. But it's great to have that list of people in your arsenal that understand what you're trying to achieve and are willing to do it with you.
That's great. It's been great having you guys on. Is there any parting shots or parting comments from either of you that you want to throw out into podcast land?
I don't think so. Podcasts are new to me. I'm a staunch resistant to change on the technology side. But I have been listening to more Fine Homebuilding and Unbuild It podcasts and those type of ones. But I'm not going to bring any light bulb moments to anybody, or
definitely not.
Yeah, my bulb's burning at maybe 5 watts.
All right, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us wherever you're listening. Helps other folks find the podcast. Stay safe, everybody, and thanks again for listening.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.